Mark. Welcome to the Pet Buzz today.
Talk about the growing demand for custom pet food and the growing number of players. I guess I'm really curious. Do you feel an acquisition of one of these companies is going to be gobbled up like a big pet food giant?
It's interesting. It hasn't happened yet, certainly at the pace you would expect, Charlotte. So let's figure out why. I'm not surprised that so many pop up, because it's as simple as millennials and Gen Zs have eclectic choices and multiple choices for restaurants and the food they eat, right? And there's so many, whether it's Freshly, whether it's Sunbasket, all the delivery type services too. So pet food purchasing, in my view, now mimics human food purchasing by millennials and Gen Zs. And that makes it all make sense to me, that there'd be a lot of brands and niche brands with good returns, but not, the kind of numbers that knock over Wall Street. And I think to some degree, the majors, and full disclosure, Royal Canin's a client of mine, which is a Mars brand and the world's largest pet food brand, at least global pet food brand, Purina, and then smaller Blue Buffalo. I could see them looking, and I don't know this, but I could see them looking at the size of the niche brands and say, that's interesting, but not enough to warrant taking on a whole new manufacturing process, right? A whole new sourcing process. And this is at a time, for example, when Royal Canin's has 300 million plus factories, plants under construction in the US to keep up with demand. So I think keeping up with demand right now for the majors is a challenge. So not taking on a new smaller brand makes sense.
Well, personally, what I see, this is where all this information, all these stats become so faulty, because, everybody looks at the stats of Gen Z, Gen X, Gen whatever, PD and Q. These are the new millennials. This is where the demand is. And you would think that they would want to address this demand. Most of these companies don't have a lot of money. So I'm thinking, they started out in their kitchen and they've gone to a smaller facility. I think it would be easy to snap one of these up. And then if you have a big brand like some of your clients, I'm not going to mention them because you mentioned them already, but why not? I think it would be an interesting test case that they can buy a company for a few million, probably take over the business, and then either make another factory or actually consider it part of their operation. So I don't really think the investment is that big, but I think with big brand backing, they'll be able to act like, what is it, fresh? They'll be able to put it in supermarkets easily because all their other food's there. So I personally think that big food, like your clients, are missing opportunities.
I don't think it's financially challenging. I think it's operationally challenging when keeping up with current demand. I'll give you a good example. Royal Canin, millennials have enjoyed it. Why? Because they have breed specific, both for
right.
dogs and cats. A lot of people don't know that for cats as well. And if you go to a PetSmart these days, you'll see whole categories of that or subcategories empty. I mean, literally demand is that intense right now. So I just think that's a tough time for deals to happen like this. I think if things settle down, Charlotte, your scenario is likely. There'll be winners for sure on the small niche brands in just the manner you outlined.
Let's talk pet insurance. Mark, opine about JAB entering the pet insurance marketplace. They're known for slipping in and making things and making lots of money, making things bigger, better, and making lots of money.
So JAB Holdings is a fascinating company. It's a financial company. It is based in Washington, D.C., really smart, and they own things ranging from 7-Up, Dr. Pepper, Krispy Kreme donuts, Panera, Pete's Coffee. So they've been in consumer brands and basically popular consumer brands for some time and done well by it. And they stepped into veterinary medicine with Compassion First, which was founded in 2013 by John Payne. John used to be CEO of Banfield and ran Bayer in the U.S. on the animal side. So an interesting group. They jump in kind of in a big way. They then brought NVA, the third largest general practice in some specialty, but general practice group in the country under their umbrella, right? So really well positioned, lots and lots of clinics across the country, if not in 50 states, certainly 45 to 50 states. So it's not surprising, right? Because pet insurance has finally shown itself. It's proved its value. Now, interestingly, for the public listening here, on the one hand, they can say we've grown 4 times, we've quadrupled in 4 to 5 years, and it's like amazing. Well, that went from 1% of pet owners to 4 to 5%. But you know what?
I'm laughing.
I know it's funny that way. But if you think about it, they've sort of proven a thesis. And what's happening now, and you may be tired of the millennial factor, but it's a factor here. Why? What drives pet insurance? It's not wellness. You can get wellness plans without having pet insurance. What's fine, and I think the doctor agrees, what's changed is that millennial group does say, you know what, this $4,000 golden doodle puppy, I've been reading up, and it looks like at year 8 or 9, we're facing some serious issues, possibly cancer, possibly orthopedic, and those price tags are serious. I'll spend 20 to 30 a month now to have in my pocket that coverage for the large scale event. And I think if you can contrast that to baby boomers, so many boomers grew up in a mentality, if your dog hits 10 and you've got a $5,000 veterinary bill, you know what? She's lived a good life. It's time to move on. So it's not a surprise, because why? If you have a national footprint of practices, then insurance covering a national pet owner audience, right? You've got a local practice that you can feed the client into, not feed, but direct them to. So I'm not surprised, and it's interesting. I think we're going to see a lot of pet insurance transactional activity, Charlotte, in the next 3 to 5 years.
I mean, look, VPI was in the game for a really long time. Okay, a really long time, and they sold out. So I don't know. I mean, every time you turn around, I was reading about two girls who own a Wags or something, Wags Insurance. They have pet insurance and also wellness plans. And I don't know. Go ahead.
I will tell you that one factor we haven't discussed that's, I think, going to drive this is telemedicine. And why is that? What they've found in the UK, Great Britain has a pet culture almost mirroring or mimicking the US culture.
Except they buy pet insurance.
Well, that's my point. They have 25%, inching towards 50% of pets covered by insurance. And what have they found? Insurers have found that they lower their costs, and i.e. improve their financial returns, if the pet owner uses telemedicine. Why? Because 80% of the calls into telemedicine that people think I better go to the clinic, which can be expensive for the carrier, can be handled outside the clinic. So they've learned that telemedicine is their best friend. They can give people solutions, advice, guidance that's much less expensive, i.e. much less costly for the insurance company. I think you're going to see more involvement of telemedicine with pet insurance companies, and that takes capital. And I think that's where you're going to see transactions.
Really have to talk about telemedicine here in the United States. The telemedicine in other countries is much more permissive than what it is here in the United States. There has to be, as far as it's understood here, that client patient-doctor relationship, and it has to be much closer here than what it is in other countries. It's changing partly because of some things that we're probably going to talk about later, and that's manpower. We don't have the manpower to deal with issues. We don't have the time to visit with patients, and clients don't really want to pay everything that they have to pay now.
But that's you talking as an individual practitioner. I mean, two things. So that's one thing. So basically, these telemedicine companies, I think, eventually are going to be large banks of veterinarians like the ASPCA Poison Control Hotline, where the people are not going to be practicing. They're just going to have banks of veterinarians, graduates come out and follow the guidebook like all telephone banks. That's one thing. Number two, in terms of telemedicine, people have to really engage in telemedicine. I mean, I'm weary of it anyway, because I have specific health problems, but I think if more people start using telemedicine, then we'll see more telemedicine options available for dogs. Back to insurance. The UK has a national health plan, so they're more insurance savvy or used to insurance we still have horrible insurance programs here. It's extremely expensive here. Do I think, I mean, yeah, maybe it's 4%, but after seeing insurance companies, I think the players who are going to survive the game are the money bag companies that have a long-term approach and really know how to get the customers going. I mean, I'd be curious to see some of these the traffic on some of these websites. I mean, really, I looked at one the other day. These two gals started, I think it's called Wagmo or Wags or something like that. But I mean, like, they have a lot of, I mean, they don't really have a lot. They don't have a lot of like biting, interesting blog posts that would keep me engaged and on the site. I mean, I want to know what things cost. And Mark, and Doc, and this from our show, Doc, vets from all these giant pharmaceutical companies and they're reluctant to talk about costs. So I think when insurance starts taking effect, Mark, people are going to say a broken leg can cost up to $10,000. That'll be part of the conversation when it becomes part of the conversation to talk about dollars and cents.
But Charlotte, there's more of that going on now than you think. I'll just tell you that. I've paid particular attention the last year to it. There's much more marketing that is making that case you just made. This is what this could cost you out of pocket versus $30 a month. And you do see like Zoetis, the largest, animal pharmaceutical in the world, they launched Pumpkin pet insurance in the US, and they're doing well by it. And it's more sophisticated marketing than you thought. Doctor knows this. The mistake pet insurance companies made early on, they expected veterinarians to sell their product. They went to vets and said, hey, here, convince your clients it's good for them. You know what vets aren't taught in vet school? They're not taught how to be salesmen. They don't go to vet school to be salesmen. They don't like doing that. And so I think it's taken 10 to 20 years for insurance companies to shift to a much more consumer-friendly style of marketing that we're used to.
I don't know if either one of you saw that one poll that came out with Metropolitan Pet Insurance, how the cost of a pet is going up. They were actually talking about real numbers. It came out yesterday. It was like $4,500 now was what it costs on average to have a pet.
A year,
not the old stats from, ASPCA or cost like $1,200 to have a pet.
Yeah, I that's not surprising. And it's not as much a barrier to pet ownership as you might think. I mean, honestly, the value of pets and the expectation of having a pet, people are finding a way to make that happen. However, you can still have a pet, go to a grocery store, get a grocery store dog or cat food brand. You can pay, you can get by with a lot less spend than you might think. To the issue of have we priced pets out of the low income market? We've made it harder to have certain things, but the basic care, the basic food needs can be met. We're not at the luxury good stage that the three of us have talked about before, which I still fear could come, if certain factors don't change.
Good thing or bad thing? Chewy's now has a vet platform. Vets can get drugs, have their own side business or side platform with Chewy's. Good thing or bad thing, Mark?
It's less remarkable than you think. I think it's a good thing for this reason. It's a vehicle that's used already by vets through other major companies in the space, where the vet, basically, they're the wholesaler. They consign it to them and they keep the product. The vet has a prescription the vet gets to set the price. It's actually been tried and tested. So it's, I think, surprised people maybe that Chewy did it, but it's a technique or an offering that's common now, not uncommon.
What do you think, Doc?
totally, he's right. I'm plenty of other service providers for that.
Great to see you.
Thanks for viewing our content on Pet Buzz Plus.